Welcome to Education Now. I'm your host, David Jefferson Jr. And as always, we're glad to have you with us, and we're glad that you've joined us.
Oge Dennis is principal of Irvington High School in Irvington, New Jersey. Welcome. Oge, for those of us who do not know Irvington High School is?
Right now, Irvington High School is one of the up-and-coming schools that people will soon come to know. We're having so many fantastic programs that we're implementing, especially during this pandemic season that we're going through this unprecedented time. But there are some things that are in the works that we're going to discuss in a few minutes that they're going to come to know.
Yeah, and with that being said, we're taping this on May 14th, 2020. The situation of COVID-19, the pandemic, has struck our world with a blindside, changed the regularity of life as we know it. And our overall existence has shifted, to say the least. There's a lot going on. There's distance learning. There's virtual school systems. Why you as the principal of this high school?
Well, I've been blessed with the opportunity of being the principal of this high school. This year, it started off a little rocky, because knowing coming in as a principal in September of 2019, there's some things that I believe that needed to be adjusted, trying to create a culture of excellence. Because our motto is the pursuit of excellence. So that means everything that we do must be the best, the way we talk, the way we dress, and the way we plan for students. So now, in the midst of this unprecedented time that we're currently in with this pandemic, we've shifted our focus from in-classroom instruction to out-of-classroom instruction with the virtual learning. But it didn't actually start off that way. It started off, we had a pandemic and we had to react. So we reacted, we closed school, and we provided students with packets to begin with. But then as we transition and as we learn more with this virus worldwide, we understand that we're going to be out of school a little longer than anticipated. So we quickly moved into action with our superintendent, interim superintendent, Dr. Voss, and we implemented virtual learning, where we had to transition from paper to actually electronic. And the problems that we had with that was not all students had Wi-Fi at home. Not all students had technology as a laptop or a Chromebook. So we had to figure out a way to try to figure out how can we reach those students as well. So
and not to cut you, I want to get into, before we get deeper into that, because I have some places we want to go there. Tell us a little bit more about you. How did you find your way to education?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because I had to think about that for a second, because I'm living at home. My dad was a teacher, and I knew what teaching was all about. Some of his friends were teachers, and I grew up in a classroom, technically going to school myself, and also going to summer schools with him that I didn't feel like going. But I transitioned, and going to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. He said, just be a teacher. I said, you must be.
Tell folks about where you went to school.
Well, right now I went to school at Kane University. I have a BA, a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics. I was a pure math major, and then I went through the alternate route program, not knowing what I wanted to do, just as a precautionary step. But then I pretty much fell in love with it. I had the first class I had was in Paterson, New Jersey, school 21, and I had 23 girls and 4 boys. What a learning curve that was. But then I've learned that I had to really get good at my craft. So I enrolled in St. Peter's College then, but now university in Jersey City. And I have a master's in administration and supervision, and just wanted to know how I can be more effective, not only in the classroom, but also on a district level. Then, long story short, I moved down to Atlanta. I attended August University, where I have a educational specialist degree in curriculum and instruction. And that's where everything pretty much came together for me regarding program implementation, student learning, how the accountability, how to reassess and move forward, slow down a little bit. So that really helped me kind of get my grips. And now I'm in my doctoral program at College of St. Elizabeth, And right now I'm focusing on making sure that I work on a program that not only help all students, but kind of pretty much zone in and focus on those at-risk students. And a lot of individuals may understand that at-risk is the traditional, students with these economic backgrounds and these situations that, their family life. But what I'm focusing on at-risk students, an aspect of how can these students reach the expectation that my team and I set forth? So if they cannot reach those expectations, then they will be considered at risk. So it's not so much with the economic aspect or dysfunction family or if you're an immigrant from another country, as the research points, but it shows in my research that I'm going to conduct, are students able to reach the expectation that we set forth? And they will be categorized, if they're not able to, they'll be categorized at-risk students.
Now, given everything that we've talked about, before, we are taping this during the pandemic, COVID-19. It is May 14th, 2020. We don't know how things are going to play out. Safe to say, right, OG? And
Right.
recently, the Commissioner of Education, Dr. Lamont Repillette, pushed and was granted a change in the legislation for social emotional learning agencies. Why is this important?
Oh my goodness. Without social, emotional learning, we can't do what we do. Why? Because think of it like this. Students are at home. They're used to having the support in school. Now they don't. So now they're dealing with the pandemic and the crisis by themselves, primarily because their parents report that have been getting, some of their parents have died. Some of them are in a hospital. Their family members, whoever they're living with, are not faring well, and some are, but most are not faring well. So because of that, they need the support emotionally, because that really starts from the mind and heart. So if you're not emotionally involved in what you're doing, oftentimes you will not perform at your highest potential. So we truly need to ensure that we support these students, and not only students, also social emotional for administrators and teachers as well. So it's a twofold. It's not only one area focusing on students, but we have to also focus on those who are instructing our students, because if the instructors and administrators and all those they're not involved emotionally, how can they be passionate in supporting the students? So that's why it's so important to make sure we tackle that.
And with that being said, we're aware, for those of us who do know your background, that you did some great work when you were in Atlanta, when you were down in Georgia. You come back to New Jersey, and you're working out of, and we want our viewers to know, OG has been working out of two of the most challenged areas as it relates to education, in Irvington and in Newark, New Jersey. But we did do a little research, and we came to find out that you created something for this cohort, for this group of at-risk students, which is, the epicenter of your dissertation, and that is Project Fresh Start. Can you tell us a little bit about Project Fresh Start?
Well, Project Fresh Start was a program that I assisted in implementing when I was in Atlanta, where we focus on at-risk students. And during that time, at-risk students categorized as students who were dropping out of school, trying to get them reacclimated to the instructional environment, because they were incarcerated for a few months, a year or two, and trying to get them back into the high school, trying to get a program for them that's tailored for them, an individualized learning plan for that particular student. And we had great success. And matter of fact, those certain of those students, believe it or not, they've graduated college and they're actually teaching right now in Atlanta.
Why was Project Fresh Start important? Tell folks why it was important. Because to create programming is a challenge within itself, but why was it important, OG?
Well, it was important because we want to let the students know that, we care, even though, everyone make mistakes. But sometimes, you have to provide that assistance so that mistake is not repeated. So we have to really put programs in place that not only deals with the academic side, but also deals with the social emotional learning side, and making sure that they're supported in all areas of their walk of life.
Understanding. There's some key words that you said here, but two really stand out to me. You really emphasize student learning. Student learning. We see now that student learning is looking a little bit differently. We have what we call distance learning. We have what we call virtual learning. But most importantly, it's dealing with home instruction. How are your administrators and staff doing in dealing with home instruction and empowering families and parents to kind of, keep the ball moving without this brick and mortar that we're used to?
Well, honestly, it is a challenge in the beginning, but we're smoothing it out right now. Right now, my team and I, we put together a virtual learning plan for the high school. And what does that look
Mm,
like? Well, the virtual learning plan is we created a learning platform using Google Classroom and making sure that all students have accessibility to it where they're not being charged, right? That's one. Then second, the good thing is we started using Google Classroom beginning of this academic school year. So the transition for us was a little, a little better than others. But right now, we made sure that we have a prescribed schedule for the students and for the instructors on how to do it. So right now, we made sure that there's an actual schedule from 8 to 1:30, and we have time slots for students to get into the classroom where teachers have pre-recorded lessons and available to explain the lesson if need be. But we wanted to make sure that we addressed the social emotional learning aspect of it. So we dedicated the middle of the week to check in with students live, as we're doing right now. So we can actually physically see them and talk to them, and we can provide the necessary resources that they may need at that time. So we made sure that we covered that as well. And also every student, every club advisor, every grade level have a particular Google Classroom where they can post themselves and asking questions, or the teacher can do the same, and has a chat box where we can have conversations live. So we want to make
mm.
sure we try to touch base on that, and just making sure that the technology is up to par with them, assisting them in getting what they need.
Sounds like you're out in front and out ahead, which I'm not surprising, because there's a couple of fun facts here. U.S. News and World Report gave Heritage High School during your time there a silver medal ranking in the top 500 high schools in the nation. That was 2008. So that kind of lets our audience know, not only the passion that you have, but the acknowledgement of the work that's being done. Here's a key question that I want to lead to, and you can sit back in it for a minute and just really think about and pause. How are your students? How are they? What is your engagement with being able to personally be able to reach out to them and see how they're doing? And do you have anything there in place, or is that something that might be forthcoming? Because in all of this, we're pushing out our work, we're making sure the staff is good. I mean, it's an executive administrative component that you have to handle, but I also know you have a passion for education and for young people. How are your students doing?
Well, right now they're faring well. I have an open door policy when I was in a brick and mortar in a building, but I also have one at home or wherever I am where I can have electronic devices. So we created Google Classroom for each grade level, so we can do a wellness check-in. Okay,
Mm,
whatever question that they may have, whatever question, we like to know about it. Then I assign my school social worker the task of making sure we reach out to every student, and any student who posted they need help with something, or they need help because their parents are in a hospital, they're stressed out, whatever the case may be. We quickly forward that to our school social worker and our crisis team. They jump into action. They physically call the home. If not, if we can't reach them with a phone call, we'll send someone to the home to double check to see where they are, how they're doing. Of course, practicing social distancing in this process, but we make sure that the students are accounted for. Another aspect I want to bring out is, the other day, a couple of weeks ago, I was, going to Target to pick up some necessity items that we needed. I found my students working the cash register or working the aisles with their mask and the PPEs and everything on. And they're just worried about, how was I doing? Isn't that something?
mm,
I appreciated
mm.
it. But knowing that they're working not only one shift, but they're working double shifts because their parents lost their job. But at the same time, they sprung into action, and these companies are hiring them to help support their families on top of what their families are doing. So they're in a peculiar situation where they cannot be in front of a computer at a particular time. That is why we designed our virtual learning plan, where the students are able to log in from 8:15 in the morning to 11:59 that day, because we want to give them the flexibility to complete their assignments and also get the support that they needed. And that's why I told you earlier in a segment that we have the live check-in day. So the
Mhm.
students who are not able to be online during the prescribed time, there's a day that we're online like this, so they can be accounted for, and we see the help that's needed.
Once again, we have Oge Dennis, who is the principal of Irvington High School in Irvington, New Jersey, one of the, we would say, top brass of educators throughout the state. And he is joining us on May 14th, 2020, as we are talking about education now. And you can tell through this interview that he has a strong passion for education and being an educator. OG, we can see right now that the state of education is shifting and changing. Schools are oftentimes community hubs, right? They're environments for us to come together. Do you believe that during this time, the future of education will change as a result of what we have met during the pandemic? Um, do you feel that this will continue to be a major playing out of what social distance and social learning and distance learning and virtual learning looks like, or do you believe we'll be able to incorporate those a little bit more moving forward?
Well, I believe that the landscape has changed.
Hmm.
The word change is interchangeable, right? We can say modified or upgraded. So right now, yes, right
Good.
now we're in a platform where we have to use virtual learning best practices, the do's and
Okay.
don'ts. Looking at the what platform we want to use. Is there a Moodle, Google Classroom? There's things on PowerSchool Unified Classroom. There's so many different platforms to use, but that is, I believe, will strengthen teacher pedagogy once we get back into the school building,
Mhm.
because these two things should interchange: the physical aspect of the building, and two, using a virtual classroom model. So you integrate those two. And when we integrate those two, now the possibilities in instructing our students are truly unmatched. Because
Mm.
once we have the best practices of both virtual classroom and the physical classroom, we merge them together, and now we can really get into the conversation of option two. Does seat time count? How do we move from that? Because if we're looking at moving things forward, it's a different thing when when you're trying to create a program where seat time is a major component. So now this time that we're living in now raises a lot of questions. How can we
Well,
move?
let me share with the audience what he's speaking about. He's speaking about the measurement, if you will, of a student's growth in the classroom and the indicators of that measurement with seat time,
Right.
and ensuring that the students are getting the proper amount of time in the classroom. And now with virtual learning, what does that look like? And to take it a step further, what does that look like for the effectiveness of the educator in a sense as well with this measurement? So, OG's touching on some major components here as it relates to that growth. Now, I want to shift a little bit to what you have learned and what you've overcome. When you sit before us right now and the audience is looking at you, we don't see what you have been through,
Right.
but we have to ask the question, how are you doing? And that's very important, because I think your wellness and a wellness check on you as the leader, as the head executive, if you will, of the school. There's a lot on your shoulders. And right now, I just want to know if you can share with us a success story. You kind of gave us one recently here with talking about the young people when you were heading, and seeing them out and about. But do you have any specific success stories that you want to share right now with the audience, OG?
Well, I appreciate the fact that the students reach out to me and asking me how I was doing. They wanted to know not only myself but my family. We have just last week. Every week we have grade level meetings on this platform, just so we can see. And they're having a good time. They say thank you so very much for providing a platform where they can talk to their friends, and we're moderating that. And they're talking about how we can improve. They're researching the research. The students are researching the research on how to make this more effective, right? And then now they're having ideas on how we can upgrade our technology in the building so we can incorporate this so things can be a little more streamlined once we get back. So I'm enjoying this moment as well, because when students are actively engaged in their learning, now we as educators have the responsibility to make sure we meet that demand. So I appreciated that. That's one of the success stories that we have, because students are taking charge of their learning because they truly care. And now they realize how important teachers are, right? Because we take things for granted sometimes, but now they realize, wait a second, this teacher really cared about me, right? So the relationship aspect of it is truly growing, because teachers, especially at Irvington High School teachers, they're really zoning in and make sure they reach out to their students and assisting them any way they can. It's a truly remarkable story.
Once again, we're with Oge Dennis Jr. He is the principal of Irvington High School. Um, I like to interject some kind of fun facts with my audience and some important facts. It's important to know that he is the Title I Distinguished Award winner for closing the achievement gap. He earned that in November 2013, and then in 2015 of November, which is one of the paramount awards, the National Blue Ribbon Award for closing the achievement gap. OG, obstacles are commonplace,
Right.
and to say the least, we are literally in the midst of an obstacle right now.
Right.
You shared with me some of the unique insights on how you're working to empower your students and your parents and your educators during this current state of education. Can you tell me what obstacles have you had to overcome in making some of this happen? And were there obstacles that you had planned for or not planned for? And really, how did you deal with them? If you have, you know, anything in specific or in mind that you want to share.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, well, I always lead by this.
Hmm.
If we fail to plan, then we plan to fail. So once we've heard of this pandemic that
That's
may
good.
take flight, we had to figure out how we're going to educate our students if schools close. So we anticipated maybe the first 2 weeks, then we get a grip of it, and then we can move forward. But obviously, that's not the case. So the obstacle that we faced was, how are we going to provide instruction, quality instruction, to our students if their situation at home cannot support it? For example, certain students did not have electronic devices or a laptop to use. If they had that, they didn't have the Wi-Fi capability to support them getting on their internet or the platform that's needed.
Hmm.
So, the interim superintendent, Dr. Voss, and myself in the district, we had a great conversation on how to disseminate these electronic devices to students in need. So we quickly jumped into action. We devised a plan on how to distribute these devices to all students who were in need, because we were in an effort to supplement what the parents could not do at that particular time. So we devised a schedule where students were able to come to the school practicing social distancing, and we made sure that we provided them with Chromebooks in order for them to have electronic device and information on how to tap into getting Wi-Fi, because a lot of cable companies were providing services for free up to 90 days. So we did that. So now most of our students are on Wi-Fi connection and have a device in order to meet the demand of the virtual learning aspect. So those was one of many of the obstacles that we face just to get things started and get things rolling.
And how are you able to measure that up, if you will? And speaking of in interjecting this technology with your educators, because it's kind of like I believe I saw recently the commissioner made the statement, Commissioner Repollet made the statement. It's kind of like trying to gas a flying plane. It is one of the most challenging things to do, which is your educators had to kind of get technologically savvy while yet and still teaching students. Did you notice that, or do you notice that component? Because that's almost professional development in a sense without the preparation, and that's to be applauded for your your staff as well.
Well, that's a very good question as well. What we did, the good thing about it is for us, see, we implemented the Google Classroom as a learning component, as a platform. The beginning of last school year, we've ramped it up in the beginning of this school year. So the transition in using it wasn't so tough.
Hmm.
But what was tough though were implementing the best practices solely on in virtual learning. Okay,
Mhm.
so we provided professional development for our staff. The district, we did a great job. The Irvington School District did a great job in providing webinars and and training from our technology department, where we're doing like this. They had a Google Meets training session on how to effectively use Google Classroom and the best practices that are associated with that. So because of those trainings and and the professionalism of our teachers and administrators, they jumped right in. So now we are continually learning how to effectively use this tool to further student instruction. So it's a phenomenal thing.
Once again, we're with Oge Dennis, principal of Irvington High School, New Jersey Reward School recipient for the years of 2015, 2016, and 2017. OG, if you have any, you've been in this for a long time, and that means that we call folks like you veterans, folks who have, some war stripes, some medals on their chest, and to say the least, someone who, in education, young folks starting out can kind of look up to, and not even young folks, anyone starting out in education can look to you as an example, and a model. Do you have a tip or a piece of advice to all educators that you'd like to share with them, or anything that maybe could make the road ahead a little bit easier for someone else? Is there anything that if you knew it earlier than knowing it later, you would want to be able to give knowledge even to yourself?
Well, it's interesting you use the word veteran because we don't think of ourselves as veterans, right? So right now,
Right,
I've
right.
been doing this for about 20 plus years. I definitely 20 years. I was
Wow.
talking to a colleague yesterday, and we started at the same time. We were laughing. That it's 20 years now, right? But
Mm.
here's the thing, you know, I thought when I graduated college and I have my teaching degree, I was so excited. I'm like, okay, good, I got it. Now I'm able to teach. But the trick to this is you must be a lifelong learner. There's no such thing as everything, because what I know now, if I knew then, obviously it would have been, I probably been better off, right? But you have
Hmm.
to learn through experience. So my tip is to anyone who's coming into education now, be prepared to learn like you never learned before. Learn to be flexible, learn to adapt, because this train ride that we're on, or the plane ride, whatever, however you want to describe it, is forever changing. It's never stagnant. So it's either you move with it or it's going to leave you behind. So continue to learn, continue to be up to date with the best practices on how to reach our children. Always remember, it's not about you, it's about the students that we're teaching. Our job is to make sure they become the best members, productive members of this global economy, no longer for our city and state and country, but global economy.
So I give folks, you said it in this last comment, but I give folks an opportunity here as we close, in 30 seconds and one statement, you know, Um, education now. What is education now? What does it mean to you? What does education now mean to you?
Education now means to me an opportunity to grow and to truly move us into the 21st century. We have 21st century skills. Well, all of that now is paramount. Everything else that we have to put together, everything to educate our students, not only in the classroom, but also the social emotional aspect of it, and truly showing empathy, truly showing that we care for our students and moving them forward. Because right now they're living in a time frame that's very difficult for them. They don't know if they should go up or down, right, or left or right. But our job is right now is to guide them and support them, because now we have this monster called technology that is forever evolving. So our job is to make sure that we stay on top of it, not get behind, but try to get in front of it, which is a daunting task. But doing that, I believe that we'll be very successful.
Dennis, thank you for joining us, and we will keep track of Irvington High School. We appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep up the great work. Keep the passion alive. And thank you for joining us for Education Now. We're going to see you next time. And remember, as always, school's in session. Thank you.
Thank you.